She's sweet, she's salty, she's smart and craves chocolate every day. Here is your host, the Greek goddess of comedy, Ellen Karis.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sweet and Salty with Ellen Karis. I am your host, Ellen Karis, and today, wait for it, we have a guest episode of Sweet and Salty. I am so excited for our guest because I feel like I found him. He's not from the States, by the way, which is really, really cool. He's from Australia, which I'm fascinated with Australia because I've never been, but I don't get out that much. So that's not really a big thing for me. But I saw him for the first time in February of 2025 at Rodney's Comedy Club here in New York City. And I have to say, I was blown away. Um, he is an incredible storyteller. The stand-up comedy, the jokes, the journey is fantastic. So without further ado, please welcome my guest, Anthony Locascio. Hi, how are you?
Hi, Ellen. Thank you so much for having me on and the kind words. That's so lovely.
You you were amazing. You were brought to Rodney's Comedy Club by our mutual friend Regis Rikopoulos, who we all love, Kefi Comedy. And Regis is an amazing guy. Kind of came on the scene last year, wanted to bring comedy, entertainment, and it's so great because bringing somebody like you, I mean, it really expanded the circle. You know, it wasn't just the New York comics, and I had never heard of you before, and I am so happy I went. I have to say, I don't go to a ton of comedy because I'm usually either part of the show, in the show, I watch the show. But that was the night I wasn't on the lineup. And I have to tell you, I was blown away. I was pleasantly surprised and blown away. And after you, later on, when we got to meet, I was as equally blown away by how nice you are. I mean, you're just super, super sweet. I just got such a good vibe from you. But I'm so impressed. I don't even know where to begin. I know you're from Australia. I have no idea where. I've never been there before. I am like the least world traveled person. But I'm like very New York, like, we don't, and my husband doesn't like to travel, so we don't really go very far. But I'd love to come to Australia someday.
Well, honestly, Ellen, and I'm not just saying this to blow smoke up your ass or your listener base, but why would you go anywhere else when you're from New York? Like New York, it's the center of the universe, and I was only made more aware of that having had the privilege of coming and working in New York for the first time. Like I've been to New York before, but being able to come and do not only like my hour, but then I also went and did Gotham Comedy Club over the weekend as well, and just like for a guy who has had a dream to be a comedian, to after 7 years to finally come and perform in the home, like the spiritual heartbeat, the mecca of comedy. It's like nothing else, and I'm like absolutely addicted to New York, and I will come back ASAP. And I will do everything in my power to move to New York because I've absolutely fallen in love with the idea of being a comic in New York. I should make one clarification though, not to disparage our friend Rigas, but he didn't bring me out. This is what
Oh,
happened.
oh, okay.
It's gonna be an even bigger compliment to Rigas eventually. But so I was doing a Canada tour, and the tour was like really compressed in the end. We ended up doing the Montreal, Ottawa, and Toronto dates like one night after the other. And I'd never been to Canada before, and I thought, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to fly all the way to Canada and I'm going to be there for 4 days. That doesn't seem like a good idea. So I was trying to figure out, like, I booked a one-way flight and I was trying to figure out what to do. And then my dad was like, well, why don't you go to New York? You can stay with our cousins in Long Island. And why don't you do a show in New York? And I thought, well, yeah, great idea. I reached out to a bunch of comedy clubs. Rodney's was the first one that got back to me, and so I thought, yeah, sounds good. Used to be Dangerfields. What a legendary place. What an honor. Absolutely. And so I booked it in, completely uncognizant of the tribulations of like trying to sell tickets to a show in New York when you're an unknown and you don't have a fan base. Like I've got a little bit of an American fan base. I'm not sure how many of them are concentrated in New York, but it's one thing to like have, you know, 50 to 100 people that like follow you that are from New York, but it's quite another thing to convince them to come and see your show. And so a few weeks before the show, just randomly, I had been followed by this account called Geffy Comedy for a few years, exchanged a few DMs, didn't really know too much about it. And then we just agreed to jump on a call 3 weeks before I came out. And I met Rigas, you know, over the phone call. And he was like, bro, you should have come to me ages ago. I would have been able to pack the house out for you. We got 3 weeks. We're gonna do our best. And he really came through even with such little notice. And for really like he's this is the second time in 2 weeks that I'm praising this guy. Um, like I went on another New York based podcast last week, and I was praising this guy, and I can't say enough good things about him because on a complete whim, on a punt, he didn't know me. We've obviously become friends since, and I'm so grateful for everything that he's been able to do for me. But just on a whim of like, I like your videos, bro. You seem like a good guy. I'm gonna help you out, and he really, really did. So, long way of saying that, yeah, he wasn't even involved from the beginning, and yet he helped me out, you know, so much. So, I mean, also,
Great. It
it's
was meant to
just,
be. It was meant to be.
yeah, and it's also just so, and you know, you having me on this podcast and you being so nice to me, is another proof positive of this thing that I'm gonna mention. It's like Americans are amazing. You guys, especially like American Greeks. Like this guy, he's from Australia, but he's you know, he's got Greek blood. We like what he does. We're gonna help. We're gonna help just because we can. People don't do that in Australia, Ellen. People are like, nah, fuck yeah. You know, it's that's a classic Australian expression, by the way. Nah, fuck yeah.
Well, first of all,
Um,
where in Australia are you from?
I'm in Sydney.
Sydney.
So
Okay, great.
Sydney, East Coast. Sydney is effectively the closest thing to New York that Australia has. It's the biggest city. It's buzzing all the time, and you stop me if you feel this comparison is unfair, but like the entire existence of most of the social ecosystem in Sydney is predicated on we're going to make money.
Hmm. Well, that's us.
That's
Yeah,
that's
that's
that's the
yeah,
thing.
that's definitely us. Yeah, I mean, the New York comedy scene, I've been in it for a long time. I grew up here, so I'm a native, like Manhattan. Like I haven't gotten off the island. And I will say I've been to LA, and I there's to me there's no comparison. No offense to anybody there. It's just different. The layout is different. The amount of comedy clubs is different. The whole thing is different. The way that you travel is different. You saw we walk places, we take the subway, we hop in an Uber really quick. It's just different. We're much more concentrated here. So, and it is the Mecca, and it is where everybody got started. Back in the 50s, the comedy was in the Catskills in upstate New York, in the Borscht Belt. There were all the Jewish comedians. I mean, a lot of the old timers all came. As you talked about Long Island. Rodney is from Long Island. Jerry Seinfeld's from Long Island. And so definitely a great place. And like I said, I'm from here, so there was no like, should I go or shouldn't I? Like it all happened. And as a new comic back in the day, there was so much opportunity to do open mics and bringer shows and and all that other kind of stuff. And it's not just New York City. So even for myself, New Jersey, you said you have cousins in Long Island, Connecticut, like it's all sort of like one big giant, tri-state area. So a lot of us work in all different places. Like I work a lot on Long Island and New Jersey. So we have more, more, there's just more access to that. And, it's not just clubs around here. I mean, I do a lot of private stuff. As you know, there's this Greek market now, that's been around for a long time. And now there's actually many more Greek American comedians. When I started, it was not like that at all. And so it's good. That's the good news. The other news is there's a lot of competition now. And
Mm.
of course, there's social media and there's TikTok and there's, people that are funny on TikTok, but may not necessarily have an hour stand-up act. And, there's all that, there's all that kind of stuff, which is that's not just a Greek thing. That's just, like an overall comment. So, it's a challenge, it's a big challenge, but I have to say, I saw you and your jokes, your storytelling. I said before, you're an amazing storyteller. I swear, I don't say that lightly, and I can't remember the last time I said that to somebody. I mean, usually stand-ups, you have a rhythm and it's funny and there's a vibe, but you really take us on a journey, and to get somebody else that's a stand-up to really be blown away is hard, just because we watch it so much all the time. And so you have your Greek heritage, and then of course being Australian. And to tell you the truth, being in New York or coming to the States and being Australian, to me is like, that's like another ethnicity, right? So you got
Mm.
that. But you're Italian and you're Greek. Your comedy special, which I'm going to say it a few times throughout our conversation, called Papu, which means grandfather in Greek, is phenomenal. I watched it live. I just watched the YouTube, and which was incredibly impressive because it was in a big theater and you were doing crowd work, which generally, again, I've watched a lot of, you watch a lot of comedy on TV or you see it in theaters. Usually crowd work doesn't really work that well in a big theater. And
Hmm.
you mastered it, and you were great, and you bring in a little bit of the Italian as well. You talk about poop, but you talk about your girlfriend, you talk about your relationship. I mean, the whole thing was just such a journey. You're a great writer. I don't know. I want to know what your background was, like how this whole thing got started, and like, I have an accounting degree. Like
Uh-huh.
I was a CPA. Like it's weird. Like I didn't have any of that. Mine was like very different, but I feel like you were a performer from the get-go. And I'm assuming you have some kind of acting training, because that's how I feel. That's the vibe you give off. So,
Okay. There's first of all, you're gonna make me blush too hard, and I'm gonna have to take a break from this because you're being so kind, Ellen.
it's
Thank you.
true. It's really true.
There's so many things in what you just said that I would love to address. First of all, the being a storyteller, I really appreciate that, and it's something that I pride myself on, but something that you wouldn't know, and something that perhaps your listeners won't know, is that it's very much born out of the Australian comedy style. So a lot of Australian comedy is based on British comedy, and the way that the Edinburgh Fringe Festival kind of works is that it's like, I'm not sure if you've done Edinburgh, if you've been to Edinburgh, but
No, I know of it, but I've never done it before.
so comedians are encouraged to effectively go to Edinburgh every single year for the festival with a new show. And the style of the hour in the UK is very, very different to the style of the hour in the United States. The style of the hour in the United States that we've always grown up, I mean, I've always grown up watching, whether it's the two Eddie Murphy specials, whether it's any of the Chris Rock or the Bill Burr stuff, like the American stand-up comedy hour is perfectly content to just be like joke, 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 joke all the way through, even if they're non sequiturs, even if they're longer bits, shorter bits, doesn't matter. Like that's the style, and that's what's accepted. In the UK, it's kind of like when you do an Edinburgh Fringe Festival show, you have to have a through line, you have to have a narrative, you have to have a story or a theme or something like that, for your show to either, kind of stand out, or be something more than that. And that ethos, that kind of mentality and philosophy has trickled into Australia because we have the Melbourne Comedy Festival and all of the Australian comedy festivals. So I kind of had to learn early on that, okay, well, I'm a new comic. When I was very, very, very fresh, I kind of did something that you shouldn't do. And I would, and I assume you as a veteran comic would also never tell anybody to do. And I did an hour of stand up after 5 months of doing open mics. And unheard of, and frankly, totally, totally stupid, in hindsight, and something that I would never recommend to anybody. However, what it did to me was it allowed me to know that, okay, this is the process of putting together an hour, and this is what it's like to be on stage for an hour in front of people. And I did that every single year for the like in perpetuity, the whole time that I've been doing stand up. So by the time I got to doing Papur, I had already done it 8 times. So you kind of naturally develop an ability to write the hour and know what material will work together really well, what material, and you obviously get better the more you do it at joke writing and the kind of longer bits. But being able to actually see how the material fits together and can tell a story is something that I have been practicing for a really long time. So I appreciate you saying that. You did also mention that I tip the hat to my Italian. I mentioned I have one joke about my Italian grandfather, my nonno, in the special, and that was purely because after touring the show initially, after the first like 5 or 6 times that I did Papur, I didn't mention my nonno at all. And I had Italians who would come to my show. They'd come up to me afterwards and they'd be like, "What about nonno? I feel like you're not in touch with your Italian side at all. What about nonno?" And I didn't want to be like, "Well, hey, I've done so many jokes about my nonno and I've done so many jokes about my Italian side, and this show happens to be about my Greek grandfather who is a Greek man, so there's a bit more Greek shit in this show." But in lieu of that, I thought, all right, I'll just put one nonno joke in early on near the start, and then the Italians will be like, all right, we've had our appetizer, we're satisfied, we don't have to give this guy a hard time. Yeah, because you got to do that, right? You got to feed the paying customers. You mentioned the special. I was like absolutely honored to film it at the Enmore Theatre in Sydney, which is, I don't want to say it's like our Madison Square Garden because it doesn't have that scale, but in terms of like notoriety, like if you're any kind of performer who's grown up in Sydney, Enmore Theatre is absolutely the dream. And I said to myself, that's my dream to do from the start of doing comedy. I thought it would take me 20 years. It took me 7, and I was just blown away and so grateful that enough people came that I packed it out and got to film a really special show there, and now I have that forever. So I'm like just so blown away, and I still don't really believe that I did that. Now to cycle,
I just have to interrupt. So
Yeah.
you're only doing it not even a decade. So right, is that stand-up comedy? Did you do acting?
I hit 8 years last month for stand-up. I do the odd commercial. I have an audition this afternoon for acting. But to cycle back to your final question that you asked me before, I have absolutely no history with performing. I have absolutely no history. I've got no acting experience or degree or anything like that. I also have an accounting degree.
No way.
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's crazy. I didn't. That's crazy.
Yep. So I went to my parents. I'm sure this will hit home to Ellen, but my parents are first generation Australians. Their parents migrated to Australia in the 50s. And you know, they have the very immigrant ingrained mentality of like work hard, make money, work hard, make money, work hard, make money. And they sent me to it's called a selective school here in Australia. I'm not sure what they call it in the United States, but it's like a smart kids school. And they paid a lot of money for me to go there, and they were like, doctor or lawyer, your choice, go for it. So I finished school and I started a law degree, and I was making my way through it slowly, slowly. And then at the end of year 3 out of 5 years for my law degree, I was kicked out for academic collusion
Uh-oh.
because I was sharing papers and I was not doing any work. I was just like copying other people and just partying and just like doing that. And in the law faculty, they were like, "You're out, buddy. Sorry." So I'm still paying student debt for the 3 years of that degree that I never got. However, they did let me finish my secondary degree, which was accounting. So I got an accounting degree and I entered into the insolvency industry, which is liquidations and bankruptcies. I worked in that for 4 years in liquidations and bankruptcies. And, you know, as you can imagine, not the best place for your dopamine and your happiness to survive. Just watching businesses completely disintegrate. You know, you have one woman with a bankrupt estate threaten to kill herself on the phone to you, and you're like, all right, this is interesting, this is fun. But when like 4 or 5 do it, you know, you're like, all right, come on, this is getting a bit boring now. You know, give me a new thing. And so I was depressed. I was in a bad way, dealing with some addiction stuff, in a really bad relationship, and I had always wanted to do comedy. My dad and my uncle sat me down when I was 11 years old to watch Eddie Murphy Delirious and Eddie Murphy Raw, and I watched these guys ugly laugh, like cry laugh. And I thought, this is magic. This is the greatest and coolest thing that you could ever do with your life. But I had just been brought up in that you got like this is what you got to do. You can't go to your Greek and Italian parents and say, I'm going to be in the arts when you're a teenager and when you're finishing school, and for them to be like, you go for it, you go after your dream. It's not going to happen.
Oh, I know this well. I know this
So
so well.
so it was never a path that I even considered. But I was in this state where like I was doing this job that I hated. I was really, really kind of my self-esteem and my life trajectory was really decimated by being kicked out of my law degree, because I always just thought, okay, well, I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be like Law and Order SVU. That's going to be my life. And I just really, I was kind of floating. And then I thought to myself, well, I am asked to make speeches at everybody's 21st. I am like considered a funny guy. I love to, I love to speak publicly, and I speak very often publicly, and I don't have to write anything down. I don't have to memorize anything. I can just flow with it. So for a little while, I just like even dreamt of the possibility of being a stand-up. And for a year and a bit, I just wrote down anything funny that I ever thought of or ever said for a whole year, just in my phone notes, not really thinking of doing anything with it. And then something snapped in me one day, and I said to myself, okay, well, I'm 24. I don't want to get to 35 and not have tried to live my dream, but I need a strategy. I need a way to actually attack it cleverly, and I need a way that I can show my friends and family in particular that, okay, I want to pursue this, but I'm really serious about it. And so the idea to rent out a theater and, all at my own cost, and invite all my friends and family. And I told everybody here, take one ticket for free and then take a second ticket and give it to somebody that doesn't know me personally. and I'll film the show and I'll use it as a basis to kind of try and form an online audience, and I'll try and build from there. And so I jumped into open mics. I did open mics for like 6 months. And through that process, a lot of people would like, oh, well, I heard on the Joe Rogan podcast that Shane Gillis said you shouldn't do an hour after until you've been doing it for 10 years. And I kept hearing that noise and I kept thinking, well, fuck, have I made a, like, is my plan gonna be bad? And I just sat around with some comics after a show, after doing, I thought I was doing well at open mics, and I said to them, how do you move up? What do you do? Because I think I'm doing well. And they said it's nothing to do with how good you are or how funny you are. All you need to do is be a good hang. You need to sink beers with the boys after the shows, and you need to you just need to be cool to hang with. And so then we'll tell our friends who run the better gigs that you're a cool hang, and then you'll do that, and then you'll just keep moving up like that. And I thought, fuck that. That's not like, I'm not going to. I've got friends. I need to establish healthy relationships with drinking, and I need to not be sinking beers with the boys after doing a 4-minute open mic spot every single night of the week. So I went ahead with my plan. I rented the theater. At my own personal cost, I filmed the show. We had 400 people in there that night. Of the hour that I did, I feel like maybe like 7 to 8 minutes were acceptable. And I think I showed, though, to enough people there that I was willing to take the risk and that they should come along for the journey. And I think that a decent percentage of the people that came that night have come to see me every single year since then, and have helped me and supported me and watched me grow. So that's kind of the origin story.
Well, that's unique to say the least. I've never heard that.
Uh-huh.
I've never heard that one before. I'm still reeling from the fact that you have an accounting degree. So, but what's interesting is I mean, I love that first of all, you didn't do any of the conventional things. And for whatever your struggles were, you also had a lot of control over and discipline to write. And obviously you had a calling because you really wanted to do this, and you just broke all the rules. There was you went straight to that. And even though you did your first hour and know that, I don't want to say, I don't know, 30 minutes or so, or some of it wasn't like your A material, you still had enough confidence to be like, okay, and now I'm going to do it again, and we're going to work on that, and then I'm going to do another hour. So that's really unusual and unique, and you have a gift. I saw it on stage. And you're still very, very young. Comedy is a long career. It really is. So
Hmm.
you really come out of the gate incredibly strong. And I don't know what the Australian scene is to get work. Because look, at some point it's like, okay, now I need to get paid at point. You
Hmm.
get better at your craft, et cetera, et cetera. And again, what we spoke, well, at least here, it's not just clubs. It's like there's a lot of private stuff you do, and fundraisers and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's like I've done birthday parties, I've been to people's houses, I've done bridal showers. It's just, it's crazy. So, so how did you start to how did that start to happen?
So and to your point as well, it was deliberate in that I knew that if I filmed it, and I put it out, I knew that that would force me, like, now you got to write a new one. And so I actually filmed every single. I was so fortunate to have a good friend who is in like film production, and he just filmed every show for me for free. And so every year when I would do the new hour, I'm like, well, I've already put last year's hour online, so I need to write a new show. So it actually forced me to do the work year after year after year. And I don't need to tell you, but that's how you get better. You are constantly refreshing your material. You're constantly writing. You're constantly getting as much stage time as you can, and just like eating shit and like doing really demeaning gigs when you first start, and just, performing to just comedians and waiting all night for your spot and getting 4 minutes and all of that shit. And you just got to do it. It's got to be done. As the traction of the video started to get a bit better, the more hours I did, the more material from that show was like, I guess, decent and enough for people to start following me. And I had accumulated a little bit of an online fan base. And the plan was to start doing the Australian festival circuit, which is basically how you can make money in Australia from comedy. It's you go, and the festival circuit runs from January to like June every year, and you basically do different lengths of time in different cities, and it's basically just gambling, Ellen. You go to a different city, and you put money into social media ads, and you just hope that people will come. And it's a grind, and it's what you got to do, and we don't really have another choice here. But I didn't start doing that until I had planned. I had locked in to do my first national tour in 2020, and I don't know if you heard about this, but this virus was going around at that time, and kind of made it impossible for that to happen. So that all got cancelled, and for like another 2 years, I wasn't able to execute my plan, and I was panicking because all of comedy shut down. Before COVID in Sydney, if you hustled, you could get 3 gigs a night if you really, really hustled. And I was doing that. Since COVID, these days, if I'm doing 4 a week in Sydney, it's a good week. It's really, really been difficult for the scene to recover. The scene in Melbourne is a bit better because that's kind of been traditionally the comedy hub of Australia. But again, even there, it's like you can do 2 a night if you hustle. So it's nowhere near like when I did Gotham in New York. First of all, Sunday night, 10:30 p.m., fucking 300 people there. It's banana, and like not tired, I'm at the end of my week people, like rabid comedy fans, just ready to, like, they know comedy, they go to comedy all the time, they know what it is. It's just they're baying for it. And I'm speaking to the other comics that night, and they're like, yeah, bro, I've done 6 tonight. I got an erection immediately. I'm like, what, 6 on a Sunday? It's just the only way to get to that level where you guys are at, like to just have that opportunity that I just don't have here. So I had to do once COVID all settled, I really, really considered during COVID packing it all in. I looked into going back to uni and doing a psychology degree. But things panned out okay. And I did my first national tour in 2022. And I've just done the same thing year after year and just added more cities. But again, I have been fortunate to have enough of an online presence that I can go to cities where I've never performed in before and that I'm not from, and people know me and people will buy tickets. It does help to have Greek and Italian heritage because you know it as well as I do. Greeks and Italians, we just support each other. We just get around each other. And it's a nice way to build. But then the festival period ends and you're really scrounging for opportunities. I have to do so many corporate gigs. I have to do so many wedding MC things. I have to do so many random commercials and TVCs. I have to do anything that I can to sustain myself. I'm lucky enough now that I have enough of a fan base in these other cities that even when the festival season ends, I can still go back for shows into different cities like throughout the second half of the year and sell well depending on the time and the place. And so that's how you kind of have to do it, but it's hard. And I'm now fully accepting of the fact that the ceiling for where you can go in Australian comedy is just too low. I really was spoiled when I came to New York. And if you want to be a comedian and you want to like do it properly, you have to live in the US. You can do it in the UK, but I think I prefer the US, and it's just the place to be. I don't know if this
Right.
analogy is going to I don't know if this analogy is going to resonate with you, Ellen, but
Mhm.
if you want to be the best soccer player in the world, you got to go to Europe and play in the Champions League, and the US is the Champions League for comedy.
So do I hear you packing your bags? Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm eagerly speaking to immigration lawyers, and getting a visa to work in the US is no easy feat, especially as an artist. But I am coming back in October
Oh,
to
great.
tour.
Where are
Yep,
you going to be? Where are you going to be?
our old friend Rigas. I'm jumping on a call with him as soon as I finish up with you, and we are planning to do LA, San Jose Bay Area, San Francisco, I think Dallas and Austin, and then Boston and New York again.
That's great. That's
Hmm.
amazing. I'm so happy. I'm so happy that they're gonna be blown away. So, the Greek market, although, and again, let me just tell everybody, you have to watch Anthony's comedy special, Bapu. It's for everybody. It's not, I mean, we're emphasizing on our ethnicity and all. It's for everybody. And one of the things that you do that's you do very, very well is even when you say a Greek topic or a Greek joke, you explain it still in a funny way. So, and that is a talent as well to be able
Do
to
you mind? Do you mind
transport.
if I do you mind if I expand on that for a
Yeah,
second?
go right ahead.
But to expand on what you said before, it's so important for me because I did do a lot of material about my heritage, and I think that I think to shy away from any important part of your identity in your material is to do yourself a gross disservice. So I've never like shied away from it for any reason, but it is extremely important for me to not be just labeled as the Greek, the Italian comedian
Mhm.
because
I agree.
I don't want to pigeon myself. I don't want to pigeonhole myself, and I don't want to not be able to do other material. So it's extremely important to me that when I do talk about my heritage, I do it in a way that brings everybody together, rather than just, it's just an in joke and you have to be Greek to get this or you have to be Italian to get this. Because there are a lot of comics that do that. There are a lot of comics that do kind of exclusionary material. And I really, really don't. I really hate that because if you're a non-Greek and you're coming to a show that's by a Greek person and they're doing references, it's sometimes it's not even jokes. Sometimes it's just a reference to a thing that we will all know about. And you just get to laugh because they're like, oh yeah, I know that newspaper. Oh yeah, I know that delicatessen. Oh yeah, ha ha. But if you don't know that reference, you feel totally excluded. And that can like in a really, really minute kind of molecular way, that can foster division. Whereas the alternative is if you're a Greek guy and you're doing comedy about your Greek grandfather or whatever, but you do it in a way that speaks to everybody in some kind of a way, then the mentality for the people that aren't Greek is that's funny. He's talking about Greek shit. He's Greek. I'm enjoying this. Greeks must be okay. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I think that's the best kind of comedy. Like, we didn't have to be, I'm going to reference it again because it's just so seminal to me, but we didn't have to be African Americans to absolutely adore everything that Eddie Murphy was saying in his specials.
Right.
It was just such good comedy and so pervasive in its scope and the amount of people that it spoke to that it was just good and it made you love him and it made you love what he was talking about. So I really appreciate you saying that about my special. I went to great lengths to make sure that it wasn't an exclusive Greek thing.
Yeah, no, you did the job incredibly well. I noticed that yeah, obviously on the special when I saw you at Rodney's, it was more of a Greek audience. But I know exactly what you're talking about. So even when I do Greek events, um, I love when people for two things. One, first of all, everybody that's Greek is not married to a Greek, right? So even if
Mhm.
you're doing, say, like a Greek event, doesn't mean that everybody there is Greek. Their spouse cannot be. And then people bring their friends. So, and it's really cool when the friends like, come up to you and like, oh my God, we get it. Plus they're friends with the people that brought them as well. But it's like, oh yeah, that's great. Oh yeah, we went there that time. I saw that lamb out in the yard and everything. I was wondering, like, why they did that and everything. And then they invited me over for dinner, like, and all that kind of stuff. So I get it, and it's fun. I definitely, I was having this conversation with somebody a couple of weeks ago, and I said, I know like my moniker is the Greek goddess of comedy and all that, and I'm proud of all that. I mean, that's great. I wear it, right on my sleeve. But sometimes I feel like I've been pigeonholed a bit because that's
Mm.
how people know me. And quite frankly, I would say as a percentage, I would say 30%, maybe 35, 40 on a good year is my Greek show. The
Mhm.
majority is really everything else, but that's kind of what people see. So, it is what it is, but it's not true. And actually, for me now, I'm really trying to move into the corporate space because I worked in corporate America and I could work clean. And I just did like a fintech company the other day, and it went really well. And I'm just like, this is why I want to do this because the money is good. I know these people. As a matter of fact, I sat on some of their seminars. I was writing jokes, as I was listening to the topics. So, everything just takes a long time. It is a process. But again, I mean all of this. I'm impressed because you've really mastered so much in a very short period of time. And you're very, very bright. Obvious as I'm talking to you, you can hear it. You really became a student of comedy, and you got the gist also of the audience. And I love, like, I see you respect the audience. I hate when I see a comic and they'll get up and they'll like do some material and the audience just isn't getting it. And they're like, what's wrong with you? They start, getting kind of unglued or whatever. And then, like they get very offensive of, oh, well, that's my act. Well, yeah, that's my thing. And I understand you're on the spot, you're trying to get through it, but you got to go up with the mentality of, I'm here to entertain you. I think this is the accountant in us too. People bought a ticket. You know how they bought that ticket? They worked for it. They went to work. And you know what? With their pot of money, they don't have to buy a ticket to stand-up comedy because that's discretionary income. So, I can hear it in you too. It's just like I respect people that come. They don't have to come. It's optional. And this entertainment, it's optional. I mean, we feel like they need to come, but really, at the end of the day, it's like it's the choice. So, so that's good. You've really mastered that art of pleasing the audience, and you want people to walk out and be happy. Now, with that said, I know that there are some jokes in your act. And when I heard them without even knowing, so with that said, as I'm watching your special, and even when I heard you on stage, because I know my people, you
Mm.
have some jokes where I know, because I've been there, where our people can get offended. So,
Mhm.
and what you've done is instead of just hiding it, you've brought it out into the forefront, whether it's on social media, whether you've posted what somebody has written to you, or you say it in the special, and obviously at other times. So I'll tell you a short story. When I first started doing Greek comedy, because I started with regular, right? and it was a couple years into it, and there was a manager, and he goes, "Oh, you're Greek. Well, are there any Greek managers? Are there any Greek audiences?" And he was the one that kind of planted the seeds. He goes, "The Jewish comedians are doing temples and this and that." And so I actually had hired this PR woman, Greek woman, and she got me a couple gigs, and we went down to an HEPA in Atlantic City. And it was like, it was like in a meeting room. There were, I don't know, maybe 40 people or something. And I did like 10 minutes. And I remember this older man coming over to me, and he goes, you were very funny, but don't make fun of the Greeks too much, okay? And Daxi. And I'm like, okay, I gotcha. And I knew at that moment that there was a fine line between the jokes and insulting. So I've worked very hard to try to tread that. But I commend you for just writing the joke and like seeing what happens. So how are you dealing with a little bit of that? And listen, I'm sure that criticism is a small minority. Obviously, you're very beloved and you have a big fan base, but you're always going to get that, those complainers, or those people that are insulted and they don't really understand. And it's, so how are you feeling about all that?
Look, I'm not going to lie to you. It does kind of piss me off to have strangers writing abusive comments on your social media a lot, and it does happen quite a bit because I have a lot of stuff online that people misconstrue, I think, because the video, like they're not seeing the haters are not seeing the unpopular videos. The unpopular videos no one's seeing. But the videos that are getting a lot of likes and a lot of views and a lot of shares, everyone's seeing, even the people that unfortunately don't really know what comedy is and also don't really have much of a sense of humor. So the big criticism that I often get is that the things that I'm saying are not accurate. And I'm like, well, I'm not a fucking news reporter. I'm not a fucking I'm just saying my experience, guys. I'm not like go watch the news if you want facts. I'm here to spin a story and make people laugh. And you can hear people in the room in the video laughing as well. Like I'm not doing this for you. So it does affect me, but I'm also conscious that, like you say, it is a minority overall. It's not really had like some guy in Easter said he messaged me and he said, I'm going to actively encourage members of the Greek community to stop coming to your shows. And I'm like, you go for it, bro. We'll see how that goes for you. So like we'll see. I think at the end of the day, no comic in the world, literally no comic in the world, doesn't matter what level you are, is going to be exempt from people that don't like what they're saying, and just actively railing against them. So it's part of the game, and I have to accept it, even though it does hurt sometimes. And it's part of the learning, because cycling back to what you said before, I appreciate you saying that you saw in my demeanor and my energy on stage that night that I do have just respect and appreciation for the audience. And especially if I go to a city that's not my own, like why you're not my cousin? Why are you here? So I really do absolutely feel so grateful for anybody that's not only spent their money, but like taken the time out, gotten a babysitter, taken the night off, gone into the city. Like you've come to see me. I'm here to perform a service for you, and that service is entertainment and making sure that everybody leaves happy. That's my job. And so it's not about, oh, this is my material and you guys don't get it and you guys are a shit audience or whatever. Like that's not the way to be. Having said that, it took a long time for me to overcome that feeling, because it is natural and it is a fear mechanism, because you are effectively going on stage and pouring your personality onto people. And if people aren't getting it, that is effectively a indictment of you as a person. It's like we don't like you. It's not like we don't like the spreadsheets and the profit and loss sheet that you made for us. It's not like we don't like the sandwich that you've cooked for us. It's like it's not any of that. It's we don't like you. So when that's happening, it's a very natural defense mechanism to kind of turn on the crowd. But it takes skill and experience to have the wherewithal on stage in the moment to go, okay, this isn't working. Let's try something else. Let's have different skill sets to bring them on board to actually be able to do my work. And you learn different things. Like, again, I'm preaching to the choir here, but like the first joke that you say, the first thing that you say, the very first bit has to be in any given set. This is who I am, and this is why you should trust me with however long I'm on stage now. And like you just have to make an immediate first impression. And if that doesn't work, then you go somewhere else. And then once you've earned that trust, then you can start doing the riskier stuff. Then you can start doing the kind of the edgier potentially things. So that's it's just time and experience and learning. The other thing that I really empathize with what you said in the marketing of the Greek goddess of comedy and the kind of like the tribulations that comes along with sort of pigeonholing yourself on social media. It's something that I do too. It's something that it's inescapable for me. You go onto my social media, I've got the Australian, Greek, Italian flags there. I've got all of my best performing stand-up clips online are all about being Greek or Italian. It's just a very shareable, relatable thing. And you'd be forgiven if you went onto my profile and you saw what I'm about and you're like, well, this is just a Greek and Italian comedian. And that's business. At the end of the day, which we got to make money, we got to make sure that our core base knows that we're a shop for this. You got to come here if you want this kind of meat. You got to go to this shop, and then you can use that to Trojan horse in what you actually want to talk about. I watched Sebastian Maniscalco's career like get to where it's at, and I noticed that very early on, even in the shows that he's selling out, the State Theater in Chicago or like his first big shows, the majority of the audience are Italian. And he is obviously inescapably Italian, even if he doesn't mention the word Italian or anything about Italians. He is so Italian in his expression and his demeanor and his mannerisms that it's inescapable. However, now he's one of the most popular comedians in the whole world. He's one of the richest, most successful comedians in the whole world. And you don't get to that by only having an Italian fan base. He's opened himself up to all of it, but he did start with the base of his people. So I look at that and I think, okay, well, that's possible. As long as you put the work in, as long as you are expanding on what you do and trying to reach new audiences properly while not betraying your core audience, it's okay. And it doesn't have to be pigeonholing. It's just building.
Well said. I opened for him in 2013, right on the cusp of him exploding. We did a show at a comedy club called Uncle Vinny's in Point Pleasant, which is basically a restaurant. It's BYOB. That's very Jersey. Bring your own bottle. It's very hard to get liquor licenses in Jersey, but and I'll never forget, the owner said to me, I didn't know who he was. And he said, we were going to do two shows, like an 8 o'clock and a 10:30. And he goes, this is probably the last time I'm going to get him here because he's taking off and he's going to do the Borgata in August. This was like, we did this in like February. He's like, he's going to do the Borgata, the big room at the Borgata in August. He goes, this is the last time I'm going to be able to get him here. I've already had him here like 12 times. He's sold out each time. It was like 100-seat like restaurant. And I'll never forget meeting him. We went into Dino's office. There's no green room. It was just a restaurant. We went into the Dino's office, and I introduced myself and and I'm Greek and I said, all right, I'm gonna go up and I'm gonna do 20 minutes. I said, oh, and by the way, I'm Greek, you're Italian. And then we'll do the second show, and I'll do the same thing. What would you like me to say? This and that. And then I was trying to make sure that I remembered his name, that I said his name correctly. And I'll never forget, he was like very intense, nice, but like very intense, and he was like, okay, so you're gonna do 20 and then you're gonna introduce me. I'm gonna go up and then we're gonna do the second show and you're gonna, okay. Okay. So I stood there, and again, it was like this little office, and I said to myself, this guy wants to be alone. He doesn't want to chit chat. He doesn't want to know about my journey. He doesn't he just wants to be here and go over his set, and I respect that. So I said, I'll be in the back of the room. If you need me, just let me know. And I'll see you later. And he's like, okay, so I went in the back, up, place was packed, introduced him, he went up. And it's funny, the stage was like this big. I mean, so he's so physical. So it was interesting to watch him, like the next time, on his special to really like bounce around. And I mean, he jumps, he does everything. So that was that. And then between this first and the second show, went over to him, took pictures, this, that. So by the time we finished, the second show had started. I introduced him, blah, blah. And then I left because I had to take the train back to Manhattan. And it was like an 11 o'clock train. And had I waited, it would have been the 1 in the morning train and blah, blah, blah. So I left. So I never really got to talk to him. I never took a picture or whatever, but I opened for him. It's great. And you know what's really good about him is I feel like he brought that old school flavor back because look, comedy is subjective, to each his own, yada yada. There are comics that are a bazillion times more successful than I'll ever be, but I either find it, a little too crass for me or a little too weird for me, or whatever. Again, it's subjective. But I feel like he brought some, because he really doesn't curse. He doesn't really do anything graphic and crass. And I feel like he brought a bit of that back, Um, and I commend him for bringing the ethnicity. I mean, did shows in Pennsylvania. They've never seen a Greek person before. Like places, by the way, in the United States, not the places that, Regis wants to take you, but, there are other places where they've never heard of an Australian. They don't know about a Greek. They don't know about Italian. I mean, it's crazy, right? So it's definitely a challenge, but yeah, he's great. But as far as the Greek versus the Italian, definitely there's more opportunities here for Italian comics. There's more, all the Italian comics work. They all work all the time. There's like a million Knights of Columbuses and this fan base is huge. The Greeks are supportive, but there's just not as many of them. So, it kind of is what it is. But you coming here for sure, you will be very successful. I know it. And Regis is a great promoter. And and you're hitting some really great areas. And people don't know you here, so it'll be something new.
Well, case in point, Ellen, I was so scared because I didn't want to do Papua again. Having filmed the special and put it out, it's kind of like it's out there now.
Yeah.
And it's done. And then I'm writing my new show, but I don't think it's going to be ready for October, especially not to bring to the US. But then I thought to myself, well, no one really knows me in the US. So I'm just going to do a best of hour. It's not going to be a story. It's going to be the complete diversion from what I said to you before. It's going to be an hour of jokes of all the best stuff that I've done in the last 8 years. People don't know me from a bar of soap, which I'm not sure if is an expression that you guys have, but it's an expression that we have. And I'm going to, just enjoy myself and just see how I can do comedy or my comedy to Americans, which I was really scared about before coming to Canada and New York. I thought, well, are people going to understand my accent? Are my jokes only funny to Australians? What's it going to be like? But I also relish, you know, it's weird. Stop me if you feel this way. But when I watch, especially live, in Australia, comics that are from English-speaking countries but that don't have the same accent as me, it's just a little bit extra. You're like, ooh, you're like, this person's Irish. It's like I speak that language, but that person sounds kind of funny, and it makes it a bit extra funny, and it's kind of like endearing. And I really, really noticed that when I was in Canada and the US. It was the opposite of what I had feared. People were like, "Your accent is weird, but I like it." All right, I'll work with that.
I think the Australian accent is very pleasing to the ear. I think the Irish accent is, I think, harder. Their, their pronunciations, I think, are a lot harder. I think the
Can
Australians.
I tell you a funny story
Yeah.
therein? So I think every third person that I met in New York that found out that I was Australian would just immediately and unprompted start doing their best attempt at an Australian accent at me. And it was very rarely good. So I just got used to it. And then one night I was out, it was late, I was with Rigas, and I was tired, and I was just like, I don't want to be out anymore. And this guy came up to me. I think he was a friend of Rigas's friends that I was with, and he starts talking to me, and somebody was like, "Oh, this guy is Australian. He's an Australian comedian," and the guy starts just going off at me in this accent, and at this point I'm like, I've had enough, and I snapped it. I didn't snap, but I just said, "Bro, that is such a shit accent." Turns out he was just Irish. He was just doing his own accent. It was.
So funny. That's that's really funny. That
Yeah.
I have to tell you, I really, really would love to come to Australia and do something. I have
You
no
should.
I have no representation. I will tell you that I am one of the hardest working non-successful comedians out there. So
You and me both. You and me both, sister. No
I
rep. Just
no rep. No, everything I have done from day one has been myself. I mean, it may in conjunction with different people, but like I don't have that one agent. Or
no.
well,
You and me both. It's we're alone with our accounting degrees.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So, and I have an MBA in finance, so I even went like a second time around. So I have,
Hmm.
I have a few things that I don't use anymore. But I would love to come. I know some of our colleagues, our contemporary, our brethren, I should say, have come. Basil, Angelo Tsaroukas, and
Yeah. Ange comes quite a bit. And he's the best. We barely know each other, but just by virtue of being Greeks and being on the same lineups whenever he's come out, he's just been so nice to me and so mentoring, and he's amazing.
we're doing something together in the fall. We're going to do New York,
Awesome.
or we've got like 5 shows and stuff like that. So yeah, we've done a bunch of stuff together. He's one of my closest friends. He is sincerely a nice guy, and he's freaking
He's the best.
he's hysterical. He's
You really should. I don't know if you are doing that thing that we all do, where it's like, yeah, I would love to come out, blah blah blah, but you really should come to Australia. It's a really it's weird because Australia does not have comedy as a established cultural night out at all, which makes it hard sometimes. You kind of almost have to MC your own gigs, if that makes sense, because a lot of the audience, it's like most of my friends, the first comedy show they ever went to was mine in their whole life. And so a lot of the audiences are not, they don't have that you might not even be aware of it because you're from New York and you've worked in New York and the States the whole time. But like some people don't even know what stand-up comedy is. They don't even know how to behave or how like the rhythm of it or how to act. And that can be frustrating. But then you go to the US and Canada and it's like you're working out without the weighted training vest anymore. It's like, oh, this is so easy. This is they know what this is.
But
But doing it
go ahead.
yeah, doing it in Australia presents a different challenge, and the audience is almost like the audience in the market for comedy is almost like a baby. It's like embryonic and it's growing. So it's a really interesting dynamic to do. And then of course, like if you want to visit Australia, there's no better way to do it than to just put on some shows and have most of it paid for. You could very easily, if you came, I would get you gigs like that, no problem. Like you would, I mean, Angelo could as well. Like you would get on all the festivals, no problem, and you would have a really, really good time. So please do consider it.
I will. I definitely will. And then when you come here, if you want to do anything, we could talk offline about that. But I would love to do something with you. I think you're great. I think you're awesome, and you are a talent. And I think you have you're in it. It's not like, oh, you have a bright future. Like you're in it. And what is your end game? Do you have an end game, or are you just gonna, which is a hard thing to kind of pinpoint. Like we want to keep on doing this, okay, but I mean, I'm working on a play, a one-woman show about my great
Ooh,
grandmother,
ooh,
my Cypriot great grandmother who came to the States. So we're working on that. So that's my kind of my next thing.
that is very cool. I'm always giddy to hear about comics stretching themselves creatively and doing things that are beyond the scope of what we're used to. Case in point, I'm trying at the moment to write a book. That's like kind of on the menu for me right now, but it's like it's nice to express yourself creatively without going through line by line and going, okay, uh, one line, two line, three line has to get a laugh, or you have to get rid of this whole thing. It's nice to just be able to just flow and see where you go with it. But to answer your question, for a long time, I don't know how this is going to sound, but I did have the epiphany a few years ago where I said to myself, I am no longer focused on people thinking that I'm a good comedian. I just want to be a good comedian, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
I made that flip, and that flip changes your end game and your ambitions and all that stuff. I'm still extremely ambitious. I want to be as successful as I can be, but ultimately I know that it doesn't matter how many Instagram and TikTok followers you have, because as you said before, we know a lot of people, and there's a lot of people out there that are quote unquote comedians because they do, 45-minute little skits and they put it on the internet, and they have all the time in the world to film and edit and not do it live, and then they have millions of followers or whatever, and then they do a live show and they realize that stand up is a completely different beast, and you can't just you can't just be good at it like that. You can only be good at it by doing it again and again and again for a really, really long time and suffering and learning. So it doesn't matter how many followers you have, it doesn't matter how much money you have, it doesn't matter how many extra opportunities, blah, blah, blah. The only important thing is to just continue to be better and better at comedy. And that's honestly all I want. I know it's going to sound really corny, but all I really want to do is be as good at comedy as I possibly can, and just keep getting better and better and better, and hopefully making a good living out of it at some point. But it all starts with being as good as I possibly can and growing as much as I can. And there's honestly no way for me to do that without moving to the US, unfortunately. But
Now you are engaged, married, live with somebody, all the above. I love, by the way, I won't give it away because I want people to watch the special Papu on YouTube, but there's a whole thing about the hair, which, man, you nailed it because I'm your girlfriend, okay, in that scenario. So what's did you get married or you're engaged? What
I'm engaged. Yeah, I'm
you're engaged.
engaged. Our
Congratulations.
wedding. Thank you. Our wedding's coming up in a couple of
When you coming to the dark side? When is that happening?
the wedding's in a couple of months. We're getting married in Malaysia. My
Oh, how
my my
exotic.
my fiance is Malaysian, and we're getting married in Malaysia.
Oh, wow. Is it going to be like Crazy Rich Asians?
I hope so. I hope so. Although a lot of the places you go to in Malaysia, Crazy Rich Asians is in Singapore, and they're right next to each other, and they have this rivalry. I'm trying to make material about it now, but it's like the Malaysians and the Singaporeans hate each other, despite being direct neighbors, having basically the same food, and everybody thinking they're the same people anyway, which is very similar to like
Like
Greeks and Albanians or whatever.
or
Like it's
or
like
or New York and New Jersey.
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. It's like, come on, guys. But the Singaporeans are very much the crazy rich Asians. A lot of Malaysia, they're just crazy poor Asians, which is a totally new kind of person that I'm becoming used to. But Malaysia is absolutely amazing. I've had the privilege of doing gigs there in Kuala Lumpur, and again, it's like the Asian comedy market, the scenes. There's various scenes across various capital cities in Asia, Southeast Asia in particular, that have really good and burgeoning English stand-up comedy scenes. And it's like, as opposed to Sydney and I guess New York and Melbourne and the places where people are relatively affluent that are coming to comedy because, like you say, it's an extra expense on them. When you go to a place like Malaysia and you're doing shows, a lot of the time, I did 3 shows and 2 of them are free for people to enter, and you can just really get a sense that there's these people's lives are so hard and these people are so kind of um I won't say impoverished, but they're struggling, and there is such an ingrained across the board will in this audience to just have a good time. There's no there's no sitting back with their arms folded like, all right, impress me, clown. There's nothing like that. It's just, we're here to be entertained. Thank you for entertaining us from the get-go. And it's so lovely.
That's great. That's great. And is your fiance on board with moving to the States?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. She was born in Malaysia. She grew up living in Singapore, Tokyo, Johannesburg, London, a bunch of different places before she moved to Sydney. And she's always said to me, like, we're gonna live in a different place for sure at some point. When I was in New York, I was saying to her, I've fallen in love with this place. We have to move here. She'd never even been there before, and she was already looking up real estate and salaries and jobs and where to live and all that stuff. So she's absolutely on board, and she works in tech, so it's very easy to kind of transfer that.
Well, not only is it easy, let me just say, because I was just reading an article, you know, New York used to be much more about Wall Street and banking and lawyers and just the other day they were saying we really have a tech boom now. I mean, things have, industries have changed. A lot of the trading now is electronic, it's just very different. And tech
Mm,
is really the big thing. And there's a lot of tech here. Like we're like behind what is Simi Valley, whatever that the town is in California that so they call Silicon Valley. So it's definitely a good time, and there's a lot of new construction for these tech companies to that they're all building offices here. So it's
mm.
that's excellent. That's great. That's great. I mean, you guys are you are very international. That's really impressive. So I cannot thank you enough for doing this. I really appreciate it. So by the way, everybody, we had to schedule this where it is well, now it's 9:20 p.m. my time. So you're 12 hours ahead. So, right. So it's what, 11:20 a.m.
It's 11:20 a.m.
Yeah.
here in here in Sydney.
So we had to talk not just in time, but in days. So your Wednesday morning, my Wednesday night, your Thursday morning. So I really appreciate it. I want you to hang on after we get off, but everybody, listen to me. Listen to me. I never steer you wrong. Okay, Anthony Locascio. Watch his special Bapu. It is absolutely fantastic. It's so funny. It's for everybody. And follow him on Instagram, TikTok, right? Just your name.
Yeah.
It's just
It's Anthony.Locash, which is kind of like my online moniker, because it's just what people used to call me. And I've got an Italian surname, but I wanted to call myself Low Cash, so people knew that I was Greek too. And then some people think it's my name, but Anthony.Locash on Instagram. TikTok, I barely really use it. I don't really understand it, and I don't like it. And if any of your listeners are TikTok exclusive, please do follow me on TikTok, but also know that I judge you. And yeah, please watch my special on YouTube, because yeah, I think it's worth it. So to all the listeners,
and give it a like. We need likes. It's all about the likes.
Yes.
So
and thank you. You've said
right.
Thank you to me, which I consider completely unnecessary, because this has been an absolute pleasure, Ellen. It's been a pleasure to meet you. It's been a pleasure to chat with you. And yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no, all the best. All right, everybody. And you know who I am, right? Ellen Karis, Greek chick comic on Instagram and TikTok. I agree with Anthony. I don't really like it either, but I put myself on there because that's what I was told to do. Not that anything's changed. On Facebook, Ellen Karis, Greek Goddess of Comedy. Go to my website, ellenkaris.com, where you're going to find this podcast and all the other ones we've done for 12 seasons now. We just had our 12 season anniversary. And until next time, thank you. Bye.